Hey, OLA kids. My name is Miss Linscott, and I'm going to be helping out Miss Hazlip with some of the science assignments. So you're going to be hearing my voice quite a bit. I know you guys are so tired of doing ecosystems. I know my kids are too. So we're going to wrap it up this week, and then next week we are finally going to start our genetics unit. So most of this stuff should be a review. If you feel a little lost, if you feel like you don't really remember this and you have any questions, go ahead and reach out to Miss Hazlip, and I'm sure she will help you guys out. So first thing, of course, is what is an ecosystem? What makes up an ecosystem? Well, it's two things, right? We've got our biotic factors, or living things, right? That's going to be fish or bears or humans, grass, trees, plants, bacteria. And then we have our abiotic factors, right? Those are going to be our non-living things: sunlight, temperature, the amount of oxygen in water, basically anything non-living, buildings, bridges. All of those are non-living things, but they are still in an ecosystem and still part of an ecosystem. So those biotic and abiotic factors are interacting together, right? Which creates an ecosystem. So we're going to take a second and we're going to look at a coral reef ecosystem. So we have our biotic factors interacting together, right? The small fish are eating things like zooplankton, right, which are producers. And then we have the sharks eating the large reef fish, right? Those are interacting together, almost like a little mini food chain. I'm sure you guys have talked about those, right? Zooplankton would be the producers. The small reef fish would be the primary consumer, and so on and so forth, with the shark being the top consumer or the apex predator. And then, of course, we have our abiotic and biotic factors working together. So in a coral reef ecosystem, we have a lot of salt, right? Coral reefs are in salty water. And it needs to be at specific levels. Otherwise, some of those species that live there wouldn't be able to survive. They need that saltiness in the water. And then, of course, we have our abiotic factors interacting together. That's going to be things like sunlight and temperature, right? Those correlate. The more sunlight there is, the higher the temperature in the water. Okay? And so we have to remember that ecosystems are dynamic. Well, what does that mean? It means that ecosystems are constantly changing, and they're changing because of these things called disruptions. Disruptions happen all the time. For example, right, this isn't very scientific, but when you were in person last year and the teacher would be talking and that one annoying kid would interrupt and blurt out constantly, and then your teacher would get frustrated, that's a disruption, right? Something that just completely changes the course that everyone is on. So in an ecosystem, disruptions are going to cause several different things to occur. They're going to cause the types of organisms to change, right? We're going to have new organisms introduced. Some other organisms are going to leave. We're going to have organism numbers shift, right? Some organisms are going to increase. Some are going to die off and decrease. And then we have bigger things like extinction and migration, right? Extinction, that means we are completely wiping out a species of animal and it's never going to be able to return. And then migration, of course, just means things get so bad in an ecosystem, they have to migrate or they have to move somewhere different, okay? So there are several types of disruptions. So we have things like fires and flooding, earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, and all of these things are going to be like our natural disasters, right? They have been occurring for millions and millions of years, and they're going to continue to occur, right? This has nothing to do with us. But it's still a disruption. It's still going to change the ecosystem. But then we have things that are our fault, right? Whether accidentally or on purpose. We have things like overhunting. We have things like pollution and invasive species. And that was something that we really focused on in our in-person class. So invasive species are a huge, huge problem. For example, our class talked about zebra mussels, these teeny tiny little ocean mussels, probably about an inch wide. They were accidentally brought over from Russia. Somehow they were attached to a cruise ship or a boat, and they made their way over to Lake Michigan. Now, on Russia, it's not such an issue because they have a natural predator over there, and so they don't get out of line. But we put them in a new place, and they are instantly an issue. Right? Does everything turn out to be invasive? No, of course not. However, if it does become invasive, it's going to hurt the ecosystem. So these zebra mussels can reproduce like crazy. Like one little mussel can produce up to 1 million eggs at a time. And so they start spreading all over Lake Michigan. They start clogging up all kinds of pipes and different things in the lake. And so now there's flooding that's occurring. Different things are going wrong in the city because these zebra mussels, right? They are also great filter feeders. And so they are taking out the zooplankton in the lake that is needed for the other organisms. So all this is happening. There's like I think there's over 4 quadrillion mussels in Lake Michigan alone. And it costs millions and millions of dollars every year to try to fight this problem off. So definitely a large disruption, but at the end of the day, it's really our fault, whether accidentally or not. So, what are some examples? This is really quick. This is for my kids on Tuesday. We're going to discuss this on our Google Meet since we are NTI right now. But for you all, just think about what are some examples of disruptions in ecosystems that you guys have talked about or learned about in class. So, my in-person kids, we've talked about zebra mussels. We have talked about the kudzu vine. That's another invasive species, another disruption. And it's actually right here in Radcliffe. If you are driving down Dixie Highway towards E-Town, you can look on the left or the right, but there's going to be certain areas where trees are covered with this vine. And again, that's our fault. We brought this vine over from Asia thinking it looked pretty. Turns out it was going to become invasive. It grows really fast. It's very hard to kill, and it ends up taking away all the sunlight from other plants. It covers it. The other plants don't get any sunlight, and then they have to compete with the other plants for nutrients. So we've talked about several different disruptions, and I hope you guys have too. So here's just another quick example. This is a wildfire disruption, and this is just I'm going to show just a couple of seconds. This is a time lapse of some of the fires that are going on in California right now. So just go ahead and take a look real quick. So I'm not going to show you the whole thing. And it honestly, it looks really pretty on the video. However, it is extremely disruptive. Now, some natural wildfires that occur sometimes can have a positive effect. However, most of these fires that are going on right now in California, I know this video was from a couple years ago, but there's fires going on in California and Colorado right now. And most of those were started by people. And so it's a common disruption, but here's the issue. The wildfires are not only killing off a lot of the smaller animals, they are displacing the larger ones too. And so those larger animals have to flee and try to find safety. And then eventually the animals will return after the fire, looking for their homes, but they're going to figure out that most of their food supply is gone. So they're displaced. They really don't have anywhere else to go. And then another huge issue is the soil. So all that bare soil after the wildfire is susceptible to soil erosion, right? There's a difference between soil and dirt. Soil has all kinds of nutrients in it, but that soil is slowly going to fade away, right? It's going to fall off the mountain. It's going to, when it rains or floods, it's going to run into a river, and then it's just going to turn into dirt, and nothing is really going to be able to grow there. And so that soil erosion is a huge issue because the soil is no longer held in place by different trees and roots and different things like that. Now it's just completely bare, and so there's nothing to keep it safe. Oh, let me pause this. Sorry. Okay. And then the other thing that we've talked about is we've looked at so many environmental problems and issues that are going on in the world right now. And although most of the time we are the ones creating it, we also have the ability to design solutions, right? We have the ability to create new innovative ideas that are going to help our world. And so when we are creating these ideas, there are three different pillars that we have to look at, right? And we have to balance them. I know some people side with one more than the others, but in order to have a good solution, we got to take a whole bunch of things into consideration. So the first one, of course, is environmental, right? How healthy is our environment? How much biodiversity is in our environment, right? The more species and organisms, the better, right? We want to preserve our environment, but we also got to think about our economy, right? The second one is economical. So that's basically how our business is doing in that community, right? We want our businesses to do well. We want our businesses to be wealthy. We want the people in our community to make money, right? How well is the economy doing? And then the last one is social. Well, how happy are the people going to be with this decision in the community, right? That's a huge one too. And so at the beginning of the unit, most of my students were really only focusing on one of these pillars and not all three. And I know you all haven't really discussed this yet, so the assignment you are getting today has to look at 4 different design solutions. But when you are looking at them in depth and trying to figure out which one is probably the best for you, take into consideration all 3, right? Environmental, economical, and social. Again, I'm going to be sending these videos to you all from now on. If you have any questions, make sure to email Miss Hazlip, and she can help you guys out. Good luck.